Hi, Nick Roche here. You remember me, you know me. You know the robots? They and we used to be friends. I used to draw them. I sometimes used to write them. But since then I've been treading a different path, a dark path that none of you can follow. Or can you? Why, there's, there's light on this path. It's a new comic. Yes, it's a new comic called Monster Motors, The Curse of Mini Van Helsing. Now, a new comic with a subtitle. Well, actually, it's the sequel to a comic that came out last year, but you're my friends. I trust you, and I trust that you bought it. And if you didn't, well, let me just share a few facts about it. It's written by a guy called Brian Lynch. He's a Hollywood screenwriter. He's written actual films, and not the ones that your mum and dad used to film on a Sunday morning down the pub. No, these films like Hop and Puss in Boots, the kids, they've seen them, and he's writing the Minions movie this year, so he'll probably be just second only to the Avengers in the box office this year. But basically, he's written a comic. It's called Monster Motors. It imagines the idea if the classic monsters of yesteryear, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the werewolf, have been reimagined as vehicles. So Cadillacula, Mini Van Helsing in it, who is Dr. Van Helsing in minivan form, Frankenride, and a Wheelwolf. It's about a young genius mechanic with amazing hair and really, really karate poses called Vic Frankenstein, who inherits a garage inside which is an evil vampire car that sucks gasoline from others. He and his little robot, Igor, that's like Igor as an iPad, have to defend their patch from the oncoming Monster Motors. It's the best thing I've ever done. That's not saying a huge amount, but it's something I'm very, very proud of. Why should you buy it? It's got robots and cars in it. They're not the same thing as they are in Transformers, but you like them, right? It's got my drawings in it. You might not like them. That's fine. That's okay. To be honest, if you don't like the really, really kind of bouncy, springy stuff that I do, you're not going to like this. But hey, at least I'm thinking up Transformers with it. It's super fun. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon that you never knew you wanted to watch. It's like a toy range just waiting to happen. It's hopefully going to be the hit of the next decade, in terms of movies and merchandise, and we'll all be sickeningly rich from it. You know that aching vortex in your soul? This comic is just the right size to fit that. So why don't you toddle off now? Sort yourself out. It can be digital, it can be paper. But grab yourself a copy of Monster Motors, The Curse of Mini Van Helsing. It's out now. I love you.
We start in the past with the famous hero Abraham Van Helsing. No mere Hugh Jackman copy. This is the real deal. As we read from his diary, he's bemoaning the old days. Saving the world used to be much easier. A monster would rear its ugly head, and I'd put it down. That's how it had been. That's how it should have stayed. And we see the heroic young man battling a wild, snow-covered grufflock, also known as Yeti. But time passes. Next time we see Van Helsing, he's an old man, assisted by a young lady, facing off against something far more challenging. As Helsing notes, but evil has adapted and evolved. The monsters have gone metal. And now the monster is a snowcat. Not the vehicle, not the beast, but something in between, something of mammoth proportions. Suddenly, Van Helsing looks outclassed. Back at Helsing's base of operations, the old man has planned a new direction for himself. My body is withered, battered and tired, but I have a plan. Years of fighting the supernatural have made me an expert on the subject. I have discovered a curse which will transform my spirit into anyone or anything. And we see the vessel Helsing is going to transfer himself into. Ladies and gents, imagine a really old tank, steampunk to hell, the size of a compact Jawa sandcrawler. It's awesome. Tonight, my daughter April will carry out the ritual. April is hesitant. She says it's because curses never work out the way they're supposed to. If they did, they'd have a more user-friendly name. But I know it's because she doesn't want to say goodbye to her father. I explained that she's not saying goodbye. After tonight, her father will live forever in an indestructible body. And we see April performing a spell, releasing the spirit of the great man, propelling him into the mighty machine. Almost. Unfortunately, life and afterlife are not fair, and April's fears come to pass as the dog spirit flies out of his body, misses the metal beast, flies out the window, out of the property, and into the wider world. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Van Helsings owned the house that Edward Scissorhands' adopted family later bought, a slice of Adam's family Gothic in suburbia. The spiritual comet that is Van Helsing's spirit lands across the street, careening into a small minivan, whose owner is left startled as her car crackles with life and wonders to the world aloud, "What happened? Did it work?" Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Underbase, and this is Monster Motors.
Transmission is go. Underbase is live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Underbase. My name is Adam88M, and you are joining us for cars that crackle with life. Heroes and villains and creatures of darkness and creatures of light and sarcasm and kung fu poses and a cute little sidekick. This is not Cybertron, folks. This is Monster Motors. This is the series from a couple of extremely talented guys from IDW, and some of them kind of have a bit of a connection to our old Transformers world. And we liked the first series, a couple of us, and we wanted to do a review. And to be honest, we give you guys reviews of stuff that we love. And so we're going to tackle Monster Motors. So I'm not here alone. I have two faithful chums ready to battle the carring curses with me. First up, it's Nicole. Hello, my darling.
Hello. And now, am I part of the light side or the dark side?
And next up is Tricky. Save me by answering, sir. Save me.
I think we all know Nicole's definitely the dark side.
I am not. Everything is pretty ponies on my end.
Let us talk about Monster Motors. Now, we'll start with you, Nicole. What did you think of the first series?
I adored the first series.
Sorry, let me just clarify as well. For those of you who don't realize, it was a one-shot. So, gorgeous little hardback, little one-shot book that came out. So, it wasn't exactly a series. I just have pictures of people desperately trying to find issue 2 of the first Monster Motors.
Issue 7's really difficult to find.
Issue 8 has the twist.
That's the one with the holographic cover, isn't it?
Yes, just like DC. Anyway, Nicole.
I adored that one shot. I had everything I have ever wanted since my childhood. I was obsessed with monsters, the Universal monsters, and then you put them into cars. Hello, what a great mashup, you know? It looked great. The characters are fun. All the different cars and their individual personality. I mean, there was nothing not to like about it. It was awesome.
How about you, Tricky?
I read the first one just last week, actually. It's a real bit of a throwback, I feel. You don't get many things these days which are this much fun. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. It's a real kind of, as I say, a throwback to comics that I read as a child. The tongue is firmly in the cheek. It's taking you along for a ride. It's massively enjoyable. If you've had a bit of a rough day, reading something like this can just put a smile on your face.
I mean, it is. It's issue 1 of a whole new world, a whole new concept. And for an introduction issue, where they're just trying to set up the kind of rules of this place and what they want to do and the style that they want to achieve, I think it did a really good job. And it had the potential to do a lot more. I'm surprised, actually, because when they said, we're coming back, I was like, right, 4 issues, 5 issues.
Yeah.
Give us loads. So a 2-issue mini is kind of like, I want more. But I don't care, because it's developing the world. And with the creative people involved, I think this is a fantastic thing. We'll go into it now. So for you folks at home, I know you've heard from Master Nick in the intro, and I've done the sort of little prologue bit. But if you want to give this a go, rather than listening to us, just go out and read it. Okay? Go out and give it a go. Pick it up in the comic shop and flick through the first 5 pages. If you like it, take a chance on it. Because you know you're going to like the art. If you're listening to this show, you're probably a fan of Nick's work. I can tell you that the coloring is amazing. The lettering is good. Now, this is all minor stuff, you might think, but the writing as well, the characters are really strong. You won't be disappointed by this issue. And I know this might sound like, the Underbase is going all big for this. Why? Favoritism. No, it's because when the first one came out, I basically went, I'm doing a review of this because I want to talk about it. And Amy was like, okay, back off, okay. And so that's exactly why I'm doing it again, because I just want to get this out to people. You know, we always moan about comics that we don't like that are currently on the shelves. And even amongst the Transformers lines, there are stuff we like and stuff we don't like. Yeah. So if there's another comic that I think you might have a chance of enjoying, it's worth me saying it. Right, ladies and gents. Let's jump into this. Monster Motors, The Curse of Mini Van Helsing. Written by Brian Lynch, illustrated by Nick Roche, colored by Leonard O'Grady, lettered by Tom B. Long, edited by Chris Rael, and editorial assistance by Michael Benedetto. And it is dedicated to the memory of Franco Uru. So folks, very quickly, Tricky, what do you think of this cover?
This cover, he says, flicking backwards because he's got lost in some other bits of art. I like a lot of how this looks. I really like the cover. The colours just leap off the page. There's the kinetic feel of these tendrils of smoke coming off the wheels at the bottom. I can't look at April and not see April O'Neil. I'm incapable of seeing that. It's just there in my head now. And I think my very favourite thing on this cover is the 2.0 on Igor's chest. I love that. It's a nice piece of work, and it's probably worth saying at this point. I can't see Vic and not see Nick.
Of course.
That's all I see. That's all I hear. It's great. I love it.
Nick with an Elvis wig. He's there.
Yeah.
Nicole, what do you think of the cover?
I have to pretty much just double what Tricky said. It's fun. It's bright. It jumps off the page. There's a lot of personality into the mini Van Helsing. I mean, if you just look, I didn't even notice like the crucifix on top for the longest time. There's just so many little bit of details on it. I mean, just the cracks in Frankenreit's windshield. And I agree, April O'Neil for sure, and that's definitely Nick. I said that when I read the first Monster Motors. I'm like, Nick wanted to do this because he wanted to make himself as a character, and he spot on. If you guys like Nick Roche, you gotta read this because that's basically him.
If you like minivans with a monocle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me as well, the cover, I know it's we naturally kind of focus on Nick, but I'm actually going to go for O'Grady's work on this because the coloring is just sumptuous.
Yeah.
Awesome.
When you see it in PDF, it's always okay. I mean, that's what we always struggle to get across to people listening in, is the review copies that we get, they never do the colorist justice. So you look at something by Bove, you look at something by Bertram or Perez, and on PDF it looks okay. You pick it up in print and bang! And this cover is it's beautiful. It would be home. I think the colors of green would be home on a Turtles cover for sure. because it's just got that nice greeny, gooey electricity kind of feel to it. So, anyway, folks, shall we delve inside and see what's going on with all of this?
Let's.
Right. So, after our opening and the transformation of legendary hunter Van Helsing into a slightly less fantastical vehicle than he would have hoped, we jump to years later, 3 miles outside of Transylvania, Kentucky, and we meet our hero. That hero for the new generation, kind of. Genius, loner, heartthrob. These are just a few of the things I assume people call me when I'm not there. Bless you, sir. He is a man in overalls, his hair a special effect all of his own, crouching on the ground. In the background, a small, metallic, bod-like type goblin, and a truck with an eerie sense of energy to it. Meet Vic Frankenstein, inventor of wild and technological semi-magical creatures, who met his match in the form of a vampiric car and barely lived to tell the tale. Now, surrounded by the burning wreckage of an interesting evening, he finds himself being addressed by something rather less flattering. Criminal! And we meet April, backed by a cadre of cars. She's here, apparently, to lay justice upon Vic. Victor Frankenstein, you've built and weaponized a monster motor. We are taking you and your talking truck into custody. She says it with a serious expression on her face.
April's been through a lot, okay?
she's had tough times, it must be said. But she is backed up by some fantastic-looking motors. Looking pretty awesome as well in the opening shot. The truck as well is Frankenride, the small bod-like being. And if you don't know what bod is, it's a British cartoon. It's amazing. Don't argue with it. Bod-like being is called Igor, and he's amazing. And I want a plushie of him. April seems not to care really about the battle fought here, and that Vic was fighting a monster and doing some good, even if that good was propelled by more than a little bit of ego. One of April's goons, Wheelwolf, looks permanently ready to cut loose, and Vic uses a bout of tension between Wheelwolf and the others to try and maybe sneak his way out of a tricky situation. That and the fact as well, noting that April appeared to call a car Dad. Awkward. Whilst they're going through the introductions, we also meet the mighty powerhouse, which is Lagoon Buggy, who is merman-esque. And also, I'd like to think he's kind of innocent.
Yeah, he does seem to be a little bit simple, doesn't he?
Lagoon Buggy, Werewolf, we're on work release. When we're not helping on missions, we get to sleep in cages.
I like the fact that he's done something wrong. He's done something wrong, but he did it by accident. He probably didn't terrorize anyone. He just fell asleep on them or something. Sorry, Nicole.
Well, if you watch Creature for the Black Lagoon, he was a pretty simple creature. All he wanted was someone to kind of love him. Okay, it went horribly wrong and how he went out to pursue it. But
I think no means no comes into play here.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of got to be lonely in the depths there.
So, are we saying that Lagoon Buggy just needs a bit of love?
I think so.
Yes, I think so.
That's good. So, we've got a cast of cars, and we've got a vampire hunter, and apparently some sort of supersized vampire hunter stroke bug van thing. So why are the Van Helsings here? Well, April takes Vic to task, and in this big speech explains that her and this mini Van Helsing and these other semi-monster, semi-fighters are policing the world of monster motors. That these creatures, these magical motors with a vengeance, are emerging in the world, and they have appointed themselves the force to take them down. So yes, Vic apparently took out, well, temporarily, a nasty Cadillacula. However, he also as well created his own monster motor. And it doesn't matter if that's a force for good. As far as the Van Helsings are concerned, that needs to be taken out of action. Now, you can imagine that Vic would try and charm his way out of this situation. maybe just use a bit of charisma to get around this apparent conflict. But no, because he decides to patronize, then accuse April of damaging property, and finally ends up on a very badly planned guilt trip involving a theoretical dog purchase. Yes, April is about to take him down. And unfortunately, that means Vic's own mate, Frankenride, the truck, extremely mad. Right, I think that's as good a point as any to have a little natter. Tricky, what do you think about Vic as a character?
He's he comes across as very overconfident. Now, I don't think he actually is. I think this is a lot of a front, a bluff to hide a lot of his insecurities. You know, he's a single guy. He's out there by himself trying to make it. And yep. I love how kinetic he is. I love how he shapes his body. But I think there's more going on below the surface than we're actually seeing here. But,
is it the case that maybe then we'll see either, I doubt in maybe this story, but maybe in a future story, that something actually breaks that facade and we see a little bit more of what makes him tick?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think we get that far. Going back to the title page where we get Van Helsing's origin.
Yes.
It's nice to see that Tom and Jerry's housekeeper had a car.
Oh.
Because in my mind, this is now a crossover with the Tom and Jerry universe.
Okay, so you think that looks like Tom and Jerry's owner?
In my mind, yes.
Okay, Nicole, that big snowcat, what does it look like to you?
Oh, let me go to the snowcat. It just looks awesome, first of all.
That looks that looks a lot like something to me.
Does it look like
familiar?
Does it look like something from maybe an 80s cartoon?
Absolutely.
What?
Does that character maybe have an animal friend of his own?
Yeah, it's like there should be some nunchucks laying around somewhere.
Oh my gosh. Are you thinking that's Shredder? Is that what you're saying?
This is straight out of Thundercats.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And this is so meow.
Oh my gosh. Now that you say that, I can't unsee it. That's awesome.
So, okay, so if we kind of figured out, I picked up on that as well. What do you think, though, about Van Helsing's form that he was going to take? This really sort of quite horrifically bare skull-like tank.
It's very Brainiac-y to me.
Yeah.
I love the monocle again, how he's now got a harpoon for a monocle. This man's obsessed with monocles. That's what I'm getting from this.
He knows style.
Yeah, well, yeah, apparently, yeah. I don't quite understand the slot in his forehead.
No, I kind of wondered about that.
You gotta see out somehow, I guess. If April decides to go for a ride.
Yeah, actually, yes, you're probably right, actually. That's probably where he keeps her safe, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
I love the boards, the huge buck teeth that it looks like.
Yeah, I think you were pretty close with Sandcrawler before.
Yeah, it's got that feel to
it. It's utilitarian. It's a go-anywhere machine. It's hardcore for defending, and it's got the weapons to attack. It's the perfect thing for anti-monster motors. It's a shame it didn't work out.
Now, Nicole,
I would like to see this vehicle come into play somewhere down the line.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, it's got to be in storage somewhere, right?
Maybe the new Van Helsing has to take on a body snatcher who's nicked his old body at some point.
Ah.
Because that would be a David versus Goliath fight.
Either that or Igor just takes it for a joyride somewhere.
Speaking of which, Nicole, we've got Igor, we've got a bunch of new motors. What do you think about the sort of the bots and the kind of cars in this series? The look of
the
them.
cart. I think they're so well done. I mean, like Will Wolf, it looks like he has his tongue sticking out constantly, like a dog would, and I just love it.
Nice.
I mean, they're vehicles, but again, Nick is showing his genius. He's showing so much personality in these. I mean, just like where Frankenride is hovering over April and Vic, it's a side shot, but you can see all the personality trying to fight for his owner's,
Yeah.
fight for him. And I mean, it's just a small panel, but you get so much out of it. Yeah, Laguna Buggy, Creature was my favorite of the Universal monsters. I just think this guy's adorable. I want my little Laguna Buggy.
I love his little trident.
I know.
It's the most effective weapon, I'm sure. I'm sure it really is.
You get a feel of Anchorman here. The Anchorman standoff.
I love as well that his radiator is it baleen? It's the stuff that whales kind of, have. Yeah. And to me, it's not like he kind of charges or roars down the road. It's like he snuffles. And he just makes little kind of noises when he's resting as well, just to keep himself amused.
Well, he does have that constant wet look to him, like he just got out of the car wash kind of feel. So.
Well, this time it is raining.
Yes, and I should note that as well. The rain has started. In fact, I think it started. Yeah, it was very light at the start of this issue, but it does get heavier as time goes on, and there is a reason for that.
Yeah, well, this issue does pick up directly from the previous one.
Yeah, which shows that Vic is really having a very interesting evening.
No, indeed, yes.
So, as we said, April has threatened Vic, and Frankenride has got mad. And this causes Mini Van Helsing to square up to Frankenride. Now, on paper, a small minivan versus, let's face it, a very beefy flat-nosed truck. Is it flat-nosed truck?
Uh-huh. I
Yeah,
would say so.
flat-nosed truck. Would be absolutely no contest whatsoever for the truck. But April has had some time to adapt her father's new vehicular form, and he unloads an impressive array of weaponry.
I want to know where she got all those upgrades, man.
I think they're all lying around the lab. I do think that they've had to fold a small black hole to fit in all the stuff, including what looks like a chain gun.
Yeah.
That's just brilliant. And so Van Helsing cuts loose, and he cuts loose in sort of increments. He starts off with the small stuff. Now, small stuff means heavy caliber rounds and what looks like holy hand grenades. Which they do call a holy melee bomb.
Yep.
But it's a holy hand grenade.
It really is.
It is. And you kind of worry because Frankenride has been through a lot. He's taken on a massively evil force, something that had taken him apart the first time he met him, admittedly in a slightly former life. And he'd only barely survived that. And now Van Helsing is tearing into him. It's not good. And in fact, Vic has had enough. He can't bear the sight of his van, his new friend, if you like, and savior, taking all this punishment. He decides to get serious. So he warns him, "Lady, call off your minivan, or there's going to be static. You think I'm just a mechanic? I got secrets. Crazy secrets. A dark side that's only known by my therapist and my sensei." And he pulls a pose, which I cannot technically physically do without having to spend more time at the physio. It's beautiful. It's like every kid when they've watched The Karate Kid and they go home and they think nobody's watching and they can do it. And it's usually just before they fall over in their bedroom and then lie to their folks about the noise they're making. He's actually pulling, Vic Frankenstein is pulling this pose for real.
It reminds me of, when in cartoons, when people start running on the spot before they actually get some traction and go.
Yoicks.
It just looks like that to me.
It does. But I just like Vic's hand that's going off into the background.
I know.
He has the sharpest elbows on the planet.
That's
Frankenstein, by the way, for you guys who are wondering, he's moved from the small stuff, Van Helsing. He's now firing what looks like an ice ray at Frankenride. I mean, seriously, the doc is teched up with some modern gear. But we're not worried about that.
Legal? Is that street legal, you think?
It's gotten serious with it because he decides to take on April. He decides to take her on in a fist fight. Igor, robot chin attack while I give the old Frankenstein special sleeper. Oh, that's right, we have names for our moves. Now, I've not mentioned much about Igor, apart from him being bod-like, but he is giving a constant narration through this. Not as constant as I would like, I have to admit. I kind of would like to see more of him, but that's a personal thing. But he's always adding his own, twist on what Vic is saying. Like for the fact that he has no idea what a shin attack is, and he's still a very kind of innocent creature in this world. He gets taken down very quickly, much as Vic does. April gives a frankly stunning elbow to Vic's face, leaving him sort of floundering mid-air like a beached haddock.
He's had the gravity knocked out of him.
He's had the gravity. His hair is aiming for orbit. And it's nice that April at this point adds the fact that, do you know how many apocalypses I've halted because certain Vandads, I like this, Vandads, can't go upstairs or fit in elevators. Wow. Problem with throwing a line out like that, folks, is that if you're saying that about your very powerful but still human-based vehicular father, it means he's going to get distracted. He turns around. And that allows Frankenride not only to recover from the freeze ray, but to ram him. Now, this isn't like crunching in this. Okay, cars don't really butt heads and then back off in this series. There is a massive amount of action. And when Frankenride hits Van Helsing, he goes flying. Really nice visuals here.
He does, but I can kind of understand why that is, because he's got the cow catcher on the front of it.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how it wouldn't just be shunted, it would actually take flight.
Absolutely. And it's nice as well, all the way through this, and I will keep pointing out stuff with the visuals, a lot with the colours as well, and it's just really making everything pop off the page.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good page to actually mention this, but I love the lettering.
Oh, yeah. This is something special that we've not seen in Transformer comics. We've seen in some other ones, but this is almost every character has their own lettering style.
Yeah, it just helps you kind of find their voice. And
I mean, from Van Helsing has a style in his diary, and then the style that he has when he's in his car form. All of them just have this different. I really want to know though that first one with when you reading the diary entries.
Yep.
Is this all just a font?
Yeah, I can't answer that question, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to maybe we should ask somebody at a later date.
I think so. But it's really nice to see everything has its own little, style. In fact, the only two that don't are the two humans. Mm. They have a standard sort of style of speech, but everyone else, even their speech bubbles, I like kind of Werewolf's the best. It's like a brown speech bubble with white writing. I don't think you're going to see too many other examples of that.
No.
So anyway, back to the action. With Van Helsing out the way, or temporarily anyway out of the fight, the other vehicles are coming into play. Now, it's very noticeable that April allows them to get stuck in, but at the same time is sort of warning them to not try anything funny. These guys are on a leash. They are, I suppose, the equivalent of maybe two zombies minus jaws minus arms in The Walking Dead. They are monsters there for a purpose. And April allows them to attack and not try anything too mad. This is great for Werewolf, because he can just go mad, get grouchy, and let loose. Unfortunately, Lagoon Buggy is, well, he's eager.
eager to help. Just a reminder, I'm more of a water vehicle. But here goes.
I think he's wonderful. I think absolutely
I
wonderful.
love Laguna Buggy. He's so adorable. He's just happy he got invited.
He's happy to
Kind
be
of like
there.
me on this podcast. I'm so happy I got invited. I may not contribute much, but I'm happy.
Stop it, you. Now, Vic is still intent on attacking April, who's looking all cool and moody. Igor is busy pointing out a minor design flaw with his build that has left him stuck on his back and unable to get up, much like a turtle. Vic would be more bothered about this if it wasn't for the fact that April then turns around and shoots him with a mystical bolt in the shoulder. At least it wasn't the knee. There would have been so many jokes. But this moment then leads... Frankenride just looks at his downed owner. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Again, Nick's bringing that personality to, I guess they're animate objects, but normal what would be inanimate objects. So it's amazing because you feel what Frankenride's feeling right now. You're relating to a vehicle. That's what's crazy.
And the weirdest thing with Frankenride as well is that his design is you tend to find yourself looking at the reflections in the screen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But of course it's not, it's lower down. But it's not as expressive as some of the other cars. But Nick gets around that in the posing. And I think, shots like Vic lying on the ground and Frankenride sort of, staring down at him. You don't need a lot of expression to actually see what's going on. In fact, the rain does a lot of the emotional boomph for you. But as Frankenride is about to get really quite nasty with April, who looks genuinely fearful, Werewolf takes to the sky, launches himself, and then extends claws from his tires, which must play hell on public walkways, and rips into poor Frankenride. Remember, this guy has fought a baddie already tonight. He's now got the side of his chassis being chewed up. It's kind of painful to see. Now, this fight is going on because Van Helsing was out the fight. What had happened, though, is he'd been knocked near the wall where they'd all entered. And instead of just charging back to the fight, he's actually analysing it, realising that there are a whole load of wards on there. Protective spells. There was some serious magical stuff going on. Stuff that was designed to protect or maybe keep in what was in the yard. You can kind of see pennies starting to drop here. The heroes, semi-heroes, Vic and Igor, who's managed to get himself up and saluting to attention, is now trying to get this bolt out of Vic. Werewolf and Frankenride face each other, and they butt heads by just ramming themselves into each other. So it's like bumper cars, but on speed. And Werewolf is playing the tough guy here. He's being all macho. He can take this. He can take Frankenride. Nothing can stop him. Nothing except maybe using up too much of the energy that he has. Because much like a werewolf, there are alternate modes. And unfortunately, after using too much of his, Werewolf turns back into his alt mode.
I love it.
Regular estate car. Yes, missing a couple of panes of glass, maybe with a bit more sharp edges than you would expect in a family motor, but still a very average car. Even Frankenride, I think, gets a bit sarcastic. Wolf car, get less fun.
Get less fun. That's what I liked about Wolf. My gosh, here we go. Is that he gets so disappointed when he's back to his regular form. It's just like, oh, he likes being the kind of like the superhero, supercar.
You just kind of feel almost sorry for him. It's like he really hates this.
He's just like, oh.
It's a guy who 9 to 5s and then cosplays at the weekend. Of course, you know what this means, folks. If Werewolf is at the fight, who is the car that's going to take Frankenride down?
Woohoo!
Don't worry, Wolf. I got this.
Oh, what am I supposed to do?
What will the small green lagoon buggy do? We'll find out in a moment. Meanwhile, back at the humans, Vicky's kind of blacking out. It's really not going very well. They've not been able to remove this, what is now referred to as a ghost arrow. So a weapon of someone long dead. Which Vicky very blindly goes, I hate ghost arrows. Like it's the most common thing on the planet. But April says all you have to do, okay, you have to yield and you have to get your truck to yield. Your truck has to back down. Now, Frankenride is having a hell of a time because he is being attacked by the full fury, which is Lagoon Buggy, who appears to be sort of bouncing off him like a big green bumblebee.
He's harpooned him.
Has he harpooned him as
Yes.
well? It looks like Frankenride's just got a green kite. Like aerodynamic. And the best thing is, look, he's so full of hope.
I think he's getting tired.
He's not. We then get a bit of a head-to-head with, the characters are actually going to start discussing more as opposed to just exclamating at each other. And Vic notes that his monster is better than all of hers. And April says, screw you, blah, blah, blah. And that she has more weapons. And there's a little flash of lightning. Because, ladies and gents, lightning is starting to lance down from the sky. And I think Van Helsing at this point starts to realize that something is wrong. Now, April and him start discussing the location. The fact is that the fence is loaded with curses, with spells. There are repercussions for destroying it. They have effectively blasted their way in and damaged something which could be more powerful than they are. Van Helsing calmly, and I love this, he calmly shows a small, holographic style image of Frankenride and says, look, whatever else you might be thinking, I know your truck's weak spot. I can take him down in one shot, and you don't want that. Come with us. And that means Igor, that means Frankenride, and that means Vic. And Vic is going partially because he has to, but also because he wants to look out for his motors, his chums, because we don't know what the Van Helsings will do with them.
Yeah, and in the immortal words there, fire bad. Which of course is Frankenstein's weakness.
Yes. Yeah, which is never good. Dun dun dun.
That panel right there, that changed the whole tone of the comic for me. It's just like, oh, things are really serious now. Because you're starting to get to like these characters and you have that feeling like, oh, this character might not be around, It kind of got that feel of dreadfulness and sadness. I mean, if you have ever read Frankenstein, it's pretty much that same feeling.
He is. He's always been he's been used as a horror character, but he's also at heart an incredibly tragic one.
Oh yeah.
Which is, yeah, it's, of course, Igor likes to look on the bright side of things, even though all their hands are up. He notes, we heard him, Frank. We're stopping the fight. It's a draw. Sorry, Igor. It's not really a draw when your hands are up, but bless you anyway. And who knows what would have happened, folks, if it hadn't been for a half-page glorious panel of lightning lancing down and hitting Vic's home. Now, this is where Vic created Frankenride, not but a few hours, days beforehand. Well, it'd be hours, yeah. And that's the problem. That's when most of, I think, the readers start to figure out what's going to happen here. The human characters are a little bit slower on the uptake, though April is the first to get the significance of this. Hang on a second. Lightning. Lightning striking lightning rods. What's going, and she mentions this to Vic. And Vic, in this one of those wonderful moments, you see a hero explain exactly what's happening, and then only realize once he said it, what he's actually said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "This is how I brought Frankenride to life. The lightning strikes the rods attached to the truck. It's alive, history is made, so on and so forth. What happens if nothing is attached to the rods?" And we see the electricity course through the entire yard. Junkyard is full of wrecks, rusted, decomposed, shattered, unwanted. Basically, the vehicular version of a graveyard. So when these come to life, they're going to be the undead. And you see at the moment, a ball-like cockpit type thing sort of start to flicker. You see headlights go off. You see a scooter sort of blur into life. And in possibly the greatest panel ever, you see a Commodore PET come to life. A freaking Commodore PET.
It's so angry.
So would you be if you were ignored.
I was just gonna say that.
You were the future. Yesterday, you still have the coolest screen of any home computer. And if you don't know what a Commodore PET is, shame on you. Wikipedia it.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're surrounded in this yard by dozens, hundreds of these. And we see that bulbous thing come to life. And it turns into something that sort of lurches into life like if Salvador Dali, instead of sticking giraffe legs on an elephant, he'd stuck them on a wasp. Lurching really nasty. And as April realizes, it's a whole bunch of new monster motors. And they have surrounded our heroes in a moment. You've got junkers, beat-ups, you've got a forklift, you've got a fridge. There's got to be one, I suppose. And you've got the scariest Citroen 2CV I have ever seen in my life. I think that's a 2CV.
Yeah, there's definitely 2CV. I love the bug van.
Yeah, that still looks kind of cool, like kind of sweet.
Oh yeah, a little tractor in the back.
There'll be some undead hippies in there later on. That'd be fantastic.
Isn't
Van
that an
Helsing.
oxymoron? Oh wait, sorry.
Van Helsing then decides to try and take on one of the biggest and nastiest, allowing April the chance to maybe get away. The rest of them, though, decide to stay and fight. Van Helsing, however, gets taken down quickly because he's going for the big and slow beast, not realizing that he's near the scooter. The scooter is quick, it's sharp, it charges up to him and bites his bumper. Vic is clearly realizing that teaming up is the best option here, tries to drag the thing away, and he notes that it's already corroded through Van Helsing's bumper. It's spreading.
That works quick.
Which could very well play into next issue. Is he now infected? Is this a zombie bite?
No, it's not a zombie bite.
You never know. April proclaims they are undead cannibal machines that turn their victims into more undead cannibal machines. In short, we're dealing with zombies.
Zombies!
To be continued. And would we call the next issue The Last Stand at the Wreckers?
Oh.
Uh,
Well played, sir. Well played.
That was awesome.
It had to be done. I've kind of zipped through. He says his voice breaking because second puberty is always a bitch. I've kind of zipped through the rest of it. It's just because I kind of wanted to get through it, as enjoyable as it is, so that we can then talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, there's no natural break.
There isn't really, is it? I mean, this is it. The first one was actually quite fast paced. It's like you get a few pages at the beginning to orientate yourself, and then the rest is all happening in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So there's no natural breaks. Tricky, what do you think of this as a first issue?
There's a lot in here. It definitely rewards rereading.
Yeah.
It's introduced us to, the first issue really kind of brought the world to us. This kind of expanded it a little more. If I had a criticism of the first one, it does kind of throw you in the deep end a little.
Mm-hmm.
But this gives us a bit more kind of flavour to the universe.
Yeah.
I really like it. I really like the I love puns. I'm a sucker for a pun. When I got to the last page and saw zombies, I cackled for about 10 minutes.
I high-fived the mid-air. I was punching the air, being so happy. I'm like, oh my gosh. Brian, oh, that was awesome.
There's a couple of things that bug me.
Okay.
Mainly, the boots that are on the cars.
Yeah.
They're there to prevent motion, and yet they can still move. That really bugs me.
That's true, yeah.
It annoys me. But what I do like is on Wheelwolf. If you
It's hard saying his name, isn't it?
It really is. But
It is.
if you look carefully at his boot, it's got a little silver-coloured spike on top of it.
Yeah.
And if you look at the point where he becomes depowered, there's a little flash of light from that spike, as if something's activated. So I think it's like an override thing. I think when he gets too wound up, when he gets too wolfy, it's a little safeguard on it that fires and depowers him.
That's nice. I like that.
So I was trying to work out why a werewolf would become human, or in this case, vehicle again, with it still being night. I'm also assuming you can only become a wolf at night. When there's a full moon, perhaps. I don't know. Reading too much into this.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, this is it. I think it's one of those things that might end up being explained. I like the fact that he changes when he gets too excited. Mm. It's like the most inconvenient superpower of all. I'm going to need all my strength for... Oh, crap.
Yeah, it'd be the equivalent of It's the equivalent of the Ultimate Warrior really getting himself fired up to the ring and then being useless.
So just like the Ultimate Warrior, then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Oh.
Boom!
There's some truly beautiful images here.
Yeah.
When the lightning strikes the tower, I really want to get hold of this and blow it up and use it as a background on my PC or something, because it's absolutely jaw-dropping. The lines, the colour, the text, there's everything here that I'm looking for. It's lovely.
And it's a panel as well that doesn't contain a character.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the real beauty of it, for me as well, is that there are piles. It's like the backgrounds in this. I know it sounds odd to suddenly start going on about the backgrounds, but like the backgrounds in this, they're it's a mix between incredibly detailed and then quite simplistic in other ones. But in every sort of panel, they are used in such an effective manner. And this is one of the most dramatic panels in the book. And it is just a bit of foreground stuff, background stuff, and Vic's house, which is, just been there before. Yeah. But it's the lightning and the way that it's all layered. And then, as you said as well, just the use of the word effect over the front of it. Mm. Just gorgeous.
Well, talking about that panel, I mean, I think it's a way for you to immerse yourself into it, because you could actually feel like you're in that wreckage yard with them.
Yeah.
You're thrown into this story, and you just have that feeling like, uh-oh, something's going down. Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's also as well, I mean, in the other panels, the rain effects.
Yeah.
You've got just this layering of all this stuff in the background and the characters, but the way that it's sort of been built up with the downpour building, you do feel very immersed in it. In fact, there's at one point when I think April starts arguing with Van Helsing, and I think Igor has been, he's looking at Vic and Vic is looking down, but you could almost say that Vic is looking at the audience and going, "Are you still with us?" Good. Because it's about to get mad. And then we, all the way through as well, we get these wonderful shifts in tones No, I'm a big one for tones. I go nutty about it, usually with John Paul stuff, especially. But it's like from the background, the kind of origin sepia stuff. You've got the initial kind of confrontation, which is all hot oranges and reds, and then the stuff sort of moves on and on and on. It gets paler and sort of more into the blue territory.
Yeah.
And then by the end, it's kind of like a bluey green kind of like horror movie, and hope is gone. Any warmth or excitement, it's more like cold fear. And I love that. And then we have the shot where they're surrounded by all the vehicles, zombies, and you've got our heroes, and they're not that bright. They're surrounded though by all these kind of faded, dark, obviously undead machines. But the fact that they maybe allow it to go darker at the edges just means that there's a bit more menace to them, because you're not seeing them in as much detail as you could. So I'll just kind of about the colors, because I don't know why. I think it's more just because for some reason I'm really picking up on this. Maybe it's because it's not a Transformers world that I am very aware of, and I'm suddenly aware of all the rules, and I know that like Prime has to look like this, and Wheeljack has to look like this, and I'm used to seeing, of course, all the colors on the Transformer series. So with this, it's just something different.
Yeah.
But Nicole, how does this first issue work for you though in terms of a story?
I think it worked pretty good. I mean, it's you're just in one. This is just Act 1, and it's a good setup to what's going to be coming.
Yeah.
You get a sense of who the characters are. Even Laguna Buggy, he doesn't have much to say or do, but just those few little actions and words gives him such a good personality. You know exactly what he's like. It's a very well written, just in the few pages that you have. Even little Igor, or is it Igor? Is it Igor or Igor?
We're going for Igor.
Igor, okay. I mean, again, he doesn't have too much to say, but he's always in the background doing something, and you get to know what kind of individual he is. I think this is a great setup, and you're just like, okay, where's my second issue? I gotta know what's happening to these characters.
Yeah, well,
you get so invested in them.
This is it as well. It's frustrating for people because now you bought this originally electronically, didn't you, Nicole?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
This issue? Yeah, I have it electronically and a physical copy, so.
Because the release date for this has been a little bit foobarred by events in the real world. Yeah. So again, that's maybe another reason as well, folks, why we're kind of pushing this, because we were really looking forward to this. I know a lot of people were, but because of the delays, it's kind of slipped out, and now it's coming out in the same week as RIT and Mother Meets the Eye.
Yeah, just a little issue of Mother Meets the Eye. Yeah, nothing important.
And it's just like, oh, come on, folks. So,
but you want to know something? Cool. That being said, this is the first thing I read this week. More Than Meets the Eye. Everyone wants to know what's going on. But this is the first thing I picked up because I love these characters. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like More Than Meets the Eye characters, but there's just something about these little guys. Okay, I'm a monster fiend. I love monsters. I've loved them since I remember. So, but it's just so well put together.
Yeah, this is it as well.
I mean, it was such a fun, quick read, and you're just like, I read it like within just like 10 minutes. I'm like, that's it? Wait, that couldn't be 24 pages.
Now, the one other thing I'm going to ask you guys before we get to our votes, because I do want to keep this relatively short, is, and this might sound a little bit odd, but did either of you think when you finished reading it that this was written by Nick? Because it feels, I mean, I think it's a compliment because it shows that Lynch and Roach and O'Grady are clearly on a very close wavelength with this. But it feels very much like something that Nick would have written.
Yeah, absolutely. I read all of this in kind of Nick's voice. Apart from Frankenride, who I read as Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
I thought you were going to say Lenny from Motorhead.
Oh no, not Lenny from Motorhead. I might have to reread it in that voice. Yeah.
I think we might have to do an audio recording of this.
I think Nick could probably act this out.
I think I'll tell you what, folks. How many drinks would it take to get him drunk enough to attempt the whole thing at AA?
I bet you we could just get him to do one drink and he would do it.
Okay, if I can get somebody to create that wig for him, like absolutely to scale, then we'll see what we can do.
I think I'm like with everyone else. You see Vic, and for some reason you just think Nick. You know, you just feel like, oh, he's on a comic book page. It's hard to split the two up.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you see things like Genius, Loner, Heartthrob. These are just a few of the things I see people come when I'm not there. That's just Nick. I'm sorry, that is.
It is.
You see, Nick started listening to this with the hope that we were probably going to review this fairly, and now we're just laying into him on a personal level.
Well, he's a terrible, terrible person.
It's true. So, Nicole,
Yes.
voting time. What would you give this? What would you give this out of 5 overall? And
Okay,
I'll tell you what do you give it for writing and what do you give it for colouring? Let's see if there's any split in the votes.
Oh, okay. Well, because I read this on my Kindle at work as well. So after I was done, I gave it a 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, it's hard to put a perfect score in for a first issue. But there is so much delight and so much fun in this. Like I said, when it was over with, I was so upset that there wasn't any more. And I went back and just like, it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. As for the art and color, straight out 5. I don't see anything wrong with the coloring or the lines, or it's just beautiful. Like the colors, they just make you feel like you're in the story with these characters. Loved it.
Nice.
Again, that might be my monster fangirl coming out.
I think we're allowed to be prejudiced because we're not saying we prefer a creator over another. We're saying that we like the style and we like the subject matter.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's just being honest. Speaking of which, Tricky, what do you think?
It's really difficult to give the rating for writing when you've got half an episode.
Yeah.
It's also, people have got a tendency on these things to kind of over-egg them a little bit, I feel. At the moment, I can only give this a 3 for the writing.
Yep.
But, because it depends so much on the payoff.
Absolutely.
There's no logical flaws here. Nothing takes me out of a comic more than when you see something which is either out of character, which is obviously not going to be the case here because we don't really know the characters yet, or just a completely logic gap. Now, there's none of that. It's all consistent. Everything makes sense. The story is dense. There's a lot here. But how it pays off is matters for me. So I'll give that a 3 for now.
Yep.
The colouring and the art is outstanding. As you say, some of it there's so much depth in it. There's so much energy that I really enjoyed reading this. It just, as I say, it made me feel sort of like 10 again.
Yeah.
So I will.
I agree with you. It brings me back to my childhood, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's just little panels like where you see Frankenstein just ramming into Wheelwolf. And it's got depth, it's got energy, it's got motion, it's got letters which are cracking from the power of the blow.
Mm.
It's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. I will happily give this a 4 for the art. It's really, really nice.
Nice.
It's got Yetis in it.
It's got that is.
Now, if you guys haven't heard me yet, I mean, I have a thing for Yetis, so it always gets more points if a Yeti is involved.
I've just the mind boggles, Nicole.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. So,
do you want to make me happy? Involve a Yeti.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, for me, there's so many touches. Visually, it's incredible. It's a fantastic piece of collaborative work with the colours, the lines, and the lettering, which, let's face it, it's a real showcase for the letterist here. I don't know if the sound effects lettering is done by him. I would imagine that would be done by Nick himself, but Not since we're getting G2 lettering here. And we're getting some G2 lettering colours as well. It's good times, I think, to be an effects letterer on this book. Writing-wise, I think I would agree with you, Tricky. It's really difficult, especially for the first part. You kind of want to remain cautious, but then you've always got to try and rate it for what it is. Yeah. Which means that next issue, if the payoff is good, hooray, high numbers. If the payoff isn't good, prepare for, well, something similar to the final issue of Drift. Yeah. You know, where you suddenly, bang, the reality hits home. But I have faith in this. I mean, Lynch has proven himself, let's face it. He's certainly got a CV that reads strongly. So I don't think that he would start on this if he didn't have a good payoff. So I think it's 3.5 for the story. I think it's 5 for the art. And I think it's a 5.5 for the lettering, if that is possible. Big C, yeah. You're screwed now, aren't you?
Yeah, the lettering is awesome.
And can I just say as well, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but all the little touches, the thing I like the most is that on April's new gun stroke harpoon thing, and on Van Helsing's car itself below the main launcher, there's like a feature that harks back to Van Helsing's goggles on his head when we see him as an old man. Yeah. It's all those tiny little touches. And the fact as well that we have not yet seen what happens when somebody jumps on Van Helsing's car and gets into that seat that's there and actually fires this stuff manually. It's just, steampunk ahoy. So yeah, I mean, fantastic. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me on this.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Like I said, I was so happy when you invited me. I was like a little kid. Like, yay!
Tricky was like, oh god, it's that guy again.
Well, yeah. It's mostly because he knew I was going to be here. He's like,
I'm not Nicole.
It's not. If I ask you really nicely, will you come back for issue 2?
Of course. It's always an honour to be asked, you know that.
Lower your expectations, sir. So with that note of forced humbleness, I bid you all a safe and wonderful night out there, and don't be scared of monsters, because sometimes they're on your side. Until next time on the Underbase, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Underbase complete. Cease transmission.